Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to this roundtable. I'm Banjaxed. I'm assistant professor here at Grenoble Ecole de Management. I will introduce you to our two distinguished speakers, Tommy McKEARNEY and Paul Stewart. They have very interesting backgrounds. So Tommy McKEARNEY is a former member of the Irish Republican Army, a political ex-prisoner, and a hunger striker. He remains interested in the politics of contemporary Ireland and is often asked by media organizations to comment on Irish Republican politics. He's author of a book, The Provisional IRA, From Insurrection to Parliament Events, and now writes a regular column for the monthly Socialist Voice. He's also a co-author with Paul of The State of Northern Ireland and the Democratic Deficit. During the United Kingdom's European membership referendum in 2016, Tommy campaigned for what was known as a Lexit, left exit position. This position was advocated by several of the left-wing parties on the basis that they viewed the EU as a neoliberal alliance that prevented the advancement of the working class. Tommy is also an active trade unionist, holding a seat on the national executive of the Independent Workers' Union. He's currently helping promote an initiative called the Pearder O'Donnell Socialist Republican Congress, which is promoting the need to build a united socialist movement in Ireland. Originally from the county of Tyrone, he now lives in County Monaghan, sorry for the pronunciation, in the Republic of Ireland. And then to my left, there is Paul. Paul Stewart is a senior research professor in work and employment at Grenoble Ecole de Management. He was professor of the sociology of work and employment at the University of Strathclyde, Glasgow in Scotland. Among his latest publications are the Palgrave Handbook of the Sociology of Work in Europe and Between Sectarianism and Neoliberalism, the State of Northern Ireland and the Democratic Deficit. And we're also sharing an office at GEM. So allow me to start with an open question. Could you give us the historical background of the Northern Ireland Partition and of the Good Friday Agreement?
Thank you, Banjaxed. Thank you for that introduction and welcome. And we hope we can cover about 10 centuries of history in 5 minutes. We could start with the invasion of Ireland in the 12th century, but let's go forward a little bit. In 1919. Ireland was partitioned in 1920 after a period of civil war, after a period of war between Britain and Ireland, and then an internal civil war. And sometimes we refer to the period after 1920 as a period of counter-revolution. In the south of Ireland, what became the Republic of Ireland, had a very illiberal theocracy, really, Catholic theocracy. And that pushed back a lot of the gains that had been made in the period from 1916 to 1919. But we're talking about the north of Ireland today, or sometimes described as the north of Ireland, sometimes described as Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is a part of the United Kingdom. And from 1920 to 1969, it was a small state run with a very, very close political class. And Tommy and I refer to this as the Orange State, the Protestant state. And Northern Ireland was set up in such a way as to ensure that the demographics would always maintain a Protestant majority. Political leaders in the 1920s and subsequently, sometimes they could be guilty of, you might call it demographic reductionism, or sometimes sociological reductionism. The assumption would be that Protestants would always have a 2/3 majority in 6 counties of Northern Ireland, which were Northern Ireland, became part of the United Kingdom. They failed to take into account the changing, obviously, nature of society over that period of time, and how could they have done otherwise at the time. But by the 1960s, the nature of society in the north had changed quite substantially. And whereas Catholics had been denied housing allocation, had been denied the vote in local elections, and had been denied fair access to jobs, by the 1960s that was starting to change because of in part because of the external effect of what was Fordist capitalism, or really a form of imperialism at the time. And many Catholics were beginning to get jobs. It was developing a Catholic middle class. And a growing recognition that society, well, a growing response, really a political response to the recognition that society had been discriminating against a large section, a third of the population. And so what you began to see was a movement for civil rights, where people were demanding one, of course, the language at the time was one man, one vote, but it would have been women as well. Today we would say one person, one vote. At the time was one man, one vote, fair allocation of housing, fair jobs for all. The state, the Northern Ireland state, had been built on the basis of a form of political exclusion, and it was very difficult because of the way the state had been created to ensure a majority of Protestants. For Catholics or Catholic parties or nationalist, Irish nationalist parties to ever challenge the state. And in the late 60s, as the growing Catholic middle class began to push for reform, there was a resonance within, or among some Protestant people in the Protestant community as well, to change. The reaction by the state highlighted the impossibility of local political reform, and it also highlighted the importance that the state placed on repressive apparatuses, what Louis Althusser would call repressive state apparatuses. And the peaceful demonstration for reform and for change was met by very, very violent response from the state. And over a long period of months and years, that led into a war. I don't have time to go into that now, but a war between many people within the nationalist, the Catholic community, and the British state and the Unionist community as well, to try and resolve that. And there were many debates, as you can imagine, as to whether the IRA was defeated or whether the British Army was. The fact is that by the late 1980s and early 1990s, the British state, the British establishment realised that it couldn't, it wasn't it wasn't Vietnam, or it wasn't the Second World War. They couldn't drop large bombs in Belfast from 18,000 feet. They're dealing with a deep civil conflict in a northwestern European society. You want it to be normal. You want people to shop in Marks and Spencer's or C&A or the equivalent of Carrefour. You're trying to maintain a degree of normality, and yet there's an insurgency which is supported by a huge section of the minority population. And we're talking about volunteers. This is a country which had about 1.5 million people and an insurgency force of maybe 15,000 people over a period of time, in which 3,500 people died, a conflict in which 3,500 people died. And there seemed to be no end to this. There certainly wasn't a military solution. And the so-called Good Friday Agreement, which was signed in 1998 between the British government and the Sinn Féin party and the Democratic Unionist Party and the Unionists and all the political parties in Northern Ireland, sought to end the sectarian state once and for all, sought to introduce a form of political society, which in some ways you could say was a normal kind of society, in which people who consider themselves to be Catholic or Irish nationalists could have political representation. They could march and demonstrate without fear of being shot, as had been the case previously. And an attempt to make society in a way more normal in a Western liberal democratic sense. But the problem with that was that it's not a normal society. And one of the things we argued in this, Tommy and I and some colleagues argued in this book, is that Northern Ireland is still a sectarian society. It's a sectarianism, the old sectarianism in which the unionist, the Protestant unionist hierarchy dominated, has gone, that's for sure. But there's a different kind of sectarian society in which, in order to make peace, the British government, along with the Irish government, the European Commission, the European Parliament, argued that in future in the Parliament there had to be a division of interests, 50-50 between the Catholics and Protestants. And what it did was to introduce a different sort of sectarianism. In fact, it reinforced divisions between Unionists, Protestants, and nationalists and Republicans. and some of the consequences we see to this day. And it does impact in many ways on what happened during the Brexit debates in Britain, because what happened, you will know that a very small political party in Northern Ireland, the Democratic Unionist Party, the DUP, which was the party of the old Protestant loyalist, British supporting political class, forced Theresa May or said she would support Theresa May because of the minority government, the British minority government in Westminster, and the price they would expect that Theresa May would have to pay would be that Theresa May would support the DUP, support the Democratic Unionist Party. That's a very brief history of the world in Ireland from, did we start in 1200? From early 20th century through to the late 1990s. And perhaps we could now then start with the contemporary issues.
Thank you. Would you like to comment on this historical sequence?
Very briefly, Paul has outlined the historical background quite accurately. One thing I would emphasise, though, for this audience is that the differences in Northern Ireland are not theological. They are not religious. It's not a religious conflict. The two communities, if you like, in many ways we are talking about one community that is divided historically for strategic reasons. Ireland was seen, when Britain was the global superpower, Ireland was obviously seen as a strategic asset, area from where Britain could possibly be vulnerable to attack from outside, and thus insisted effectively on maintaining what would be a garrison on Ireland. And it turned out to be, at the beginning of the 20th century, that they encouraged the creation of the state of Northern Ireland in order to have actual presence on the ground in Ireland, which made strategic sense from Britain's point of view through the 20th century, while it was effectively a world superpower. This has changed over the century. Britain is no longer a global superpower, in spite of the fact that some British people would like to think of it as such, but it's no longer the global superpower. The differences were fostered in order to create a situation where one section of the community in Northern Ireland would feel that it had an advantage over the other, and therefore structural discrimination was practiced in order to maintain a cross-class alliance within what we call the unionist community, those that favour the union with Britain. So that was the reason for much of the structural discrimination, to allow one section, particularly the working class, the Protestant working class, to have not huge but significant advantages in terms of employment, in terms of housing, in terms of cultural rights. Now, I think we have got to keep in mind that this is not theological. This is not a dispute similar to the Reformation disputes that would have happened in continental Europe during the 16th century. It's a democratic issue, economic and democratic, rather than religious. So I think that is something that's important to keep in mind.
So, based on the history you've just presented, why is the Northern Ireland backstop mechanism so important for the Brexit negotiations?
Well, it's important for this reason.
C'est important parce que l'accord signé en 88, donc l'accord de Good Friday, donc je vais essayer de définir ce que cela veut dire, le backstop. Oui, cela peut prêter à confusion. Donc, avec la Grande-Bretagne et le référendum, donc la Grande-Bretagne et la volonté de quitter l'Union européenne. Donc, il y avait cet accord signé en 88, donc l'accord de Good Friday ou de Belfast. Il y a deux noms. Donc, on a identifié la sensibilité de la politique en Irlande du Nord par rapport à la République de l'Irlande. parce qu'un nombre croissant de personnes en Irlande du Nord, donc il y a eu des changements démographiques considérables, donc avec son effet sur la vie politique. Donc la question prédominante aujourd'hui, ce n'est pas le Brexit en Irlande du Nord. Le problème, c'est la position constitutionnelle de l'Irlande du Nord au sein du Royaume-Uni. Est-ce qu'elle reste ou est-ce qu'elle part? Et est-ce qu'elle devient une partie de la République? C'est ça la question cruciale, en fait. Et c'est ça qui fait émerger des passions parmi les personnes de l'Irlande du Nord. Le Brexit, c'est juste une question ancillaire. Mais parce qu'il y a eu de la reconnaissance à Dublin et à travers l'Union européenne, on sait qu'il y a cette politique, ce côté politique sensible. Donc, si la Grande-Bretagne quittait avec l'Irlande du Nord, à ce moment-là, il y aurait une barrière douanière entre la République de l'Irlande qui resterait partie de l'Union européenne et l'Irlande du Nord qui ne ferait plus partie de l'Union européenne. Et là, on aurait une frontière dure avec des douanes, des douaniers. Il y aurait des barrières physiques. Et pour éviter cela, les Britanniques, avec le gouvernement irlandais et l'Union européenne, on se met d'accord pour dire que l'Irlande du Nord sera traitée à part, qu'on allait prendre en considération l'Irlande du Nord en tant qu'exemple à part. Et donc, il n'y aura pas de besoin de règlement douanier ou de marché unique qui est légèrement différent. C'est-à-dire que les règlements gouvernant la qualité de biens, c'est quelque chose qui est commun au sein du marché unique. Et donc, ceci s'appliquerait à l'Irlande du Nord, comme si l'Irlande du Nord était encore une province de l'Union européenne. Et c'est ça le backstop. Si les Britanniques, si le gouvernement britannique ne pouvait pas se mettre d'accord sur un commerce, un échange libre avec l'Union européenne, lors de son départ de l'Union, sans conditions, sans accord, l'Irlande du Nord serait traitée comme faisant partie de l'Union européenne. C'est-à-dire, et c'est ça le backstop. C'était une garantie ou une sauvegarde pour éviter que l'Irlande du Nord mette en place des barrières douanières et des règlements pour réguler le marché unique. Le marché unique ne serait pas, ce n'est pas juste tout ce qui est douane, mais c'est quelque chose qui régule le contrôle qualité, la sécurité de biens agricoles, des mesures de sécurité concernant les produits alimentaires s'appliqueraient à l'Irlande du Nord. Un téléviseur fabriqué en Grande-Bretagne peut être vu comme sûr. Donc, il y aurait des règlements différents. Donc, l'Irlande du Nord était exclue de tout cela. Donc, c'était ça le backstop. Alors, le backstop est devenu... En fait, c'est devenu difficile pour le Royaume-Uni lorsqu'il devait partir. Cela posait un problème au sein de la situation politique. Le DUP, qui était pour l'Union en Irlande du Nord, avait le pouvoir à Westminster, au sein du Parlement britannique. Et le DUP pensait que s'il y avait un traitement spécial à l'Irlande du Nord après le départ de l'Union européenne de la Grande-Bretagne, ceci créerait une différence pratique et juridique entre l'Irlande du Nord et le reste du Royaume-Uni et la Grande-Bretagne. Et donc, le DUP pensait que l'Irlande du Nord serait déplacée plus vers l'Irlande de la République de l'Irlande. Donc, c'était ça les défis. Et donc, le DUP s'est allié aux Brexiteers de ligne dure et ils ont utilisé cet argument pour dire que il fallait un Brexit dur et ferme. Donc, au sein du Parti conservateur, du Parti Labour, on pense que le Brexit mou serait avantageux, qu'il y aura quelques éléments de l'Union européenne qui resteraient et qu'on aurait, par exemple, une union douanière au sein du marché unique. Ce sont des débats internes à la Grande-Bretagne. Si vous avez suivi, vous savez à quel point cela prête à confusion et à litige. Et en Irlande, on se préoccupait de cette frontière physique ou pas. Et pour tous ceux qui voulaient une Irlande unifiée, le parti Sinn Féin, les partis à Dublin disaient que ce n'était pas acceptable, qu'on allait revenir au passé avec cette frontière physique. Il y en avait qui disaient que c'est une position de négociation, que le gouvernement de Dublin promouvait la possibilité d'un retour à l'insurrection armée avec une frontière visible. Moi, je ne suis pas convaincue de cela. Moi, je pense que l'argument a été utilisé pour dire qu'il ne voulait pas de cela à cause de la création d'emplois dans le domaine douanier. Les Britanniques ne voulaient pas créer des emplois, ne voulaient pas imposer des taxes entre le déplacement de biens entre l'Irlande du Nord et la République de l'Irlande. Mais si vous voulez, cela a été très frustrant vis-à-vis du départ de la Grande-Bretagne si le backstop restait. Parce que si la Grande-Bretagne quittait sans accord, l'Irlande du Nord resterait au sein de l'Union européenne. Et étant donné les circonstances, les gens qui étaient pour une Irlande unifiée, les gens qui étaient pour le retrait de la séparation, pensaient que c'était une opportunité la possibilité était de promouvoir cette idée d'union. Merci, Paul. Est-ce que vous voulez rajouter quelque chose? Je pense que donc on peut se poser la question, qu'est-ce qui va se passer ensuite? Qu'est-ce qui va se passer maintenant? Et nous avons écrit dernièrement sur le rôle de l'État britannique en Irlande. Si on pense à l'Irlande, c'est un petit pays au nord qui fait partie de la Grande-Bretagne. La population, c'est la population de Lyon, en gros, même plus petite. Pourquoi ceci joue un rôle tellement dans la politique britannique? On peut se poser la question. Comme Tommy disait, on a dû styliser un peu l'argument et nos points de vue, mais historiquement, l'Irlande a été stratégique pour la Grande-Bretagne. Alors, lorsque je parle de l'Irlande, je pense que depuis les années 90, la Grande-Bretagne a décidé, il y a eu des enquêtes, des études faites par des Anglais au cours des 40-50 dernières années, les Écossais, les Gallois. Les gens s'en fichent de l'Irlande du Nord. Et en fait, la Grande-Bretagne n'a pas eu d'intérêt stratégique en termes de présence en Irlande, et depuis longtemps. Mais le problème, c'est comment quitter sans être obligé de revenir. Et la façon la plus facile de quitter l'Irlande, c'est de ne pas quitter l'Irlande. Et ce que nous proposons, c'est que depuis 1988, la réflexion de l'établissement britannique, et cela revient à Brexit, les gens sont assez énervés par tout cela, parce que cela dérange la trajectoire de la classe politique britannique. Comme quelqu'un l'a dit, la Grande-Bretagne ne s'intéresse pas au parti unioniste, elle s'intéresse au DUP, mais ce n'était pas censé être comme cela. Souvenez-vous de votre histoire politique. Theresa May était censée gagner l'élection il y a 2 ans avec une majorité, et en fait, ce n'était pas le cas. Mais en fait, la Grande-Bretagne ne s'intéresse pas aux unionistes. Il y a beaucoup de classes moyennes unionistes Et moi, je pense que la culture a un rôle à jouer, mais on aimerait bien faire partie d'une Irlande unifiée. Nous n'avons pas eu de problème depuis longtemps avec cette idée. Donc, le problème, ce n'est pas avec le DUP. Récemment, on a écrit sur le rôle de l'État profond irlandais. On a parlé de la collusion, du rôle de l'État britannique, de la police, de l'armée, dans des tueries visées par l'État au cours des 30-40 dernières années. Et en fait, la Grande-Bretagne se concentre sur Belfast aujourd'hui. On se demande pourquoi. Et nous pensons que, en fait, la Grande-Bretagne savait qu'elle ne pouvait pas battre le Parti nationaliste. Et donc, la meilleure façon de gagner la guerre, c'était de persuader les gens de ne pas s'impliquer, d'utiliser des agents, de manipuler l'opposition. Et c'est quelque chose qui s'est passé pendant très longtemps. Et le rôle de la Grande-Bretagne, son intérêt pour l'Irlande, ce n'est pas pour battre l'IRA. Tout cela, ça fait partie du passé. Mais aujourd'hui, lorsqu'on est à Belfast, si on regarde la relation donc, il y a la République de l'Irlande et l'ordre du jour, enfin l'agenda, pardon, c'est pas pareil que l'agenda de l'Irlande du Nord. Étant donné les développements politiques récents, qu'est-ce que vous voyez à l'avenir, à court terme, à moyen terme, vis-à-vis de la relation entre l'Irlande, la République de l'Irlande et la Grande-Bretagne? Alors, le rapport entre la République et la Grande-Bretagne ou le Royaume-Uni ne changera pas, à mon avis. Ils auront beaucoup d'intérêts en commun. Donc, il peut y avoir des différences actuellement. Donc, il y a le processus Brexit qui doit être traité. Et si vous avez suivi la politique au cours des derniers jours, vous savez qu'on ne sait pas ce qui va se passer. Moi, je pense que le gouvernement britannique ne sait pas ce qui va se passer. Mais la préoccupation plus grande, comme Paul Stewart le disait, ne concerne pas les conséquences du Brexit dans les zones frontières entre l'Irlande du Nord et la République, mais concerne plutôt le conflit en continu. Alors, le facteur important en Irlande du Nord, ce n'est pas le Brexit. C'est la démographie qui change, qui évolue. Donc, tous ceux qui ont peur d'une union, là, leur nombre augmente. Tous ceux qui ont peur de l'union avec la Grande-Bretagne, là, les nombres sont en décroissance. Alors, donc là, c'est plutôt 46-47% qui sont pour une union et 42% sont pour un rapport en continu avec la Grande-Bretagne. Et lorsqu'on regarde la jeunesse en école primaire, au lycée, au collège, veulent l'union entre les deux Irlandes. Donc, dans les 10 à 20 années à venir, cet équilibre de pouvoir va changer. Donc, avec ceci à l'esprit, donc à Londres et à Dublin et à Belfast, on sait que le Brexit peut être utilisé comme un catalyseur de difficultés futures. Et en termes de l'avenir, donc l'Irlande du Nord, si elle reste au sein du périmètre de l'Union européenne, et c'est assez probable, la Grande-Bretagne n'aura pas de Brexit dur. Elle va rester dans l'union douanière, elle va continuer à faire partie du marché unique. Il y aura la solution norvégienne. Il y aura un compromis entre un Brexit dur et puis avec la question de l'Irlande du Nord ayant accès à l'Union européenne grâce à la République de l'Irlande. Mais la question plus large ici, c'est l'Union européenne pense quoi? Et là, je vais vous lire un paragraphe d'une revue d'un livre qui s'appelle « Le troisième pilier » de Raghuram Rajan. Cet homme, jusqu'à dernièrement, c'était le gouverneur de la Banque de l'Inde, donc un membre de la direction du Fonds monétaire international et un conférencier au Chicago School of Economics. Et lui, il a parlé de la question du capitalisme. Il dit qu'il s'agit d'une époque dangereuse. Si les gens n'ont plus confiance en marché, si les communautés commencent à être en déclin, s'ils pensent que l'élite s'est appropriée toutes les opportunités, il y aura des protestations. Et je pense que c'est quelque chose qui nous emmène au-delà de la discussion immédiate. Est-ce que les deux Irlandes et la Grande-Bretagne vont pouvoir contenir ce désenchantement, ce sentiment d'éloignement? Je pense que ceci a contribué au vote contre l'Union européenne au sein de la Grande-Bretagne. Et même si cela paraît bizarre pour quelqu'un de l'Irlande du Nord de dire cela, la perception que le vote en Grande-Bretagne était à cause de l'ignorance, à cause de la xénophobie, à cause de l'impérialisme. Je pense que toutes ces choses-là ont joué un rôle. Mais on ne peut pas le réduire à cela. On ne peut pas oublier l'éloignement de la classe ouvrière des avantages. Donc, il y a eu Reagan, il y a eu Thatcher, il y a eu des réductions de budget. Et donc, tout ceci a eu un impact sur les classes ouvrières britanniques. Et cela peut aller au-delà de la Grande-Bretagne, au-delà de l'Irlande. Et c'est ça la question dont il faut parler. Et lorsqu'on parle de l'Union européenne, il faut... Et c'est ça qui a facilité la croissance de la droite extrême. Est-ce que le Brexit va déséquilibrer la situation? En Irlande du Nord, actuellement, il y a une petite partie de la communauté républicaine qui veut utiliser des armes, une résistance armée. Il s'agit d'un petit nombre de personnes sans beaucoup de soutien. On ne veut pas revenir au passé et à la guerre qu'on avait. Mais il y a ces personnes qui existent, mais qui ne sont pas bien soutenues. Ils ne peuvent pas se battre contre le gouvernement britannique, mais il s'agit d'un groupe de personnes qui est étroitement surveillé. Donc, c'est un groupe qui ne peut pas faire grand-chose. Et à mon avis, le Brexit va avoir un impact. Le Brexit est une question économique, essentiellement. Ce n'est pas quelque chose qui est lié à la Constitution irlandaise. L'idée que ces personnes seraient extrêmement énervées par les douanes, c'est une autre question. Mais il s'agit d'un symbole de l'administration britannique. On a déjà des cours, des tribunaux, des commissariats de police, on a des bureaux fiscaux. On a beaucoup de bâtiments liés à la présence britannique. Alors pourquoi est-ce que des douanes seraient différentes? Donc il y a ce concept à un conflit. Donc il y a cette idée d'un retour au conflit armé qui est utilisé pour avancer d'autres agendas politiques. Donc voilà, je vais peut-être passer la parole à Paul. Je suppose que nous étions là en train de parler hier. Il y a eu le vote en Grande-Bretagne. Il y avait les commentateurs politiques à Londres qui n'arrivaient pas à interpréter le vote parce que cela prête à confusion. Je pense que c'est facile de dire. Donc, il y a eu notre révolution. Et pour l'instant, c'est trop tôt. On ne sait pas ce qui va se passer. On n'aurait pas pu imaginer, même pendant la crise grecque, un vote de départ de l'Union européenne. Même s'il y avait cette antipathie vis-à-vis de l'Union européenne et de ce qu'elle symbolisait. Pour moi, cela fait partie d'une crise générale, la crise de l'État britannique. Et Tommy a raison. Moi, j'en ai marre. Et je suppose que c'est votre cas également. J'en ai marre de personnes qui ont voté pour le Brexit. Donc, c'était des ouvriers dans le Sunderland, dans les West Midlands, qui perdaient leur travail. Mais même ça fait partie de l'histoire du Brexit, ça fait partie de la crise politique, parce que presque 70% d'Écossais ont voté pour rester au sein de l'Union. La majorité des personnes en Irlande du Nord ont voté pour rester au sein de l'Union. Mais en fait, il s'agit de personnes. Donc, si vous voulez dire qu'il y a une demi-douzaine de personnes qui créent un problème, il s'agit de ces membres du DUP qui ne représentent pas une majorité de personnes en Irlande du Nord qui ont voté pour rester. C'est le parti qui pousse le Brexit dur. C'est ce parti en Irlande du Nord qui ne représente pas grand monde. Et en fait, ce qu'on essaie de dire, c'est qu'il y a cette crise plus large au sein de l'État britannique. Et c'est une crise du capitalisme d'un point de vue mondial, moi je dirais. Donc, comme je l'ai déjà souligné lorsque j'ai vu le texte du Financial Times, c'est une crise du capitalisme. Parce que, à cause des ramifications du Brexit, du vote pour le Brexit, et malgré le soutien du DUP pour un Brexit très dur, à un certain niveau, cela encourage leur vue que l'Irlande du Nord est britannique et très différente du reste de l'Irlande, ce qui n'est pas le cas. En fait, l'Irlande n'est pas tellement différente de la Grande-Bretagne, même si on a deux institutions bien différentes. Nous ne sommes pas tellement différents. Mais en fait, le DUP veut créer des divisions très dures, physiques, politiques, sociales, économiques, entre le Nord et le Sud, parce que cela convient à leur agenda, mais cela leur coûte également. Et donc, l'accord proposé par Theresa May, qui prête à dispute au sein du House of Commons et au sein du Parlement, qui donnerait un traitement avantageux à l'Irlande du Nord. Donc, l'Irlande du Nord aurait eu un accès simultané à l'Union européenne et à la Grande-Bretagne, donc aurait un avantage. Donc, le DUP a voté contre cela. Et donc, voté contre leurs propres intérêts. C'est ce qu'on pourrait croire. Et après, il y avait the Ulster Farmers Union, le syndicat des agriculteurs, donc qui a critiqué le DUP. Le CBI, donc c'est la Confédération d'industrie britannique, qui est pour le marché, l'échange libre, a critiqué le DUP également. L'industrie de l'accueil a beaucoup critiqué le DUP. Donc les gens qui sont dans l'industrie, qui sont dans les affaires, critiquent le DUP. Donc on a vu des différences entre les représentants du monde d'affaires et les représentants de l'unionisme, parce que traditionnellement, les Ulster Farmers Union, la Confederation of British Industry, l'industrie de l'accueil, soutenaient le DUP. Donc on voit qu'il n'y a plus ce soutien. C'est un soutien qui est en érosion. Et au cours des derniers jours, je pense que c'est Lord Patten, mais Chris Patten travaillait dans le gouvernement de Margaret Thatcher. Il était en Irlande, il a été interviewé et il a dit que le DUP, puisqu'il ne travaillait pas avec Theresa May, puis avec son accord, avec un atterrissement doux, il disait que le DUP facilitait l'agenda républicain. Et intuitivement, le DUP le Democratic Unionist Party, le DUP, est en train de promouvoir l'agenda auquel il s'était engagé en opposition. Alors, maintenant, on peut peut-être ouvrir la discussion et les gens peuvent poser des questions. Je ne sais pas s'il y a des microphones quelque part.
Don't be shy.
Il ne faut pas être timide.
Very interesting. Really interesting to get this presentation from you, because you're doing a better job than the BBC, by the way. Because I'm interested to know more about the idea that it's a purely economic problem, which Tommy was saying in Northern Ireland. He seems to think it's more that way than anything else. Don't you think that the fact that the British government are still voting against, the Parliament, I should say, are still voting against the famous deal, it's not just the hardline Brexiters that are voting against it? Because if it was, we wouldn't have 150 voting against it, right? It seems to me that there's a political will to not let Northern Ireland go. And I'm intrigued by what you said earlier about the fact that it's a strategic part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So I'm interested in that, what you might think to that.
Thank you. I think there are more factors in play in terms of rejecting the Theresa May deal in the House of Commons than simply a desire to keep Northern Ireland within the United Kingdom. I suspect for a start that the Labour Party, which has mixed views on this debate, because there's the belief that Jeremy Corbyn and some of his very closest advisors actually are pro-Brexit. But the Labour Party position in Britain is to support a different single market arrangement. What's been said about the Labour Party voting against Theresa May is that they're in a damned if they do, damned if they don't position, where if they were to support the Theresa May deal, while some of them would see it as being advantageous to remain within that orbit, that it would mean that they would simply endorse the Conservative Party, that thereafter, whatever would happen within the European Union, they couldn't criticise the outworking of it. I don't still believe that Northern Ireland and retaining Northern Ireland within the United Kingdom remains a priority for many politicians in Britain. The strategic position has shifted over the past 50 years. We no longer have the Soviet Union and the Cold War. I think the fact that Britain is no longer effectively a global superpower. The homeland defence in Britain itself really now rests as much on the United States as it does on the Royal Navy. So I think they're taking other decisions, but the decision by the hard Brexiteers, they have used the backstop as an excuse for preventing Theresa May introducing a softer Brexit. The Labour Party has its own political reasons for not supporting it. That give a change of circumstances, if there was a Labour Party in power with under Jeremy Corbyn, I think they could quite comfortably see Northern Ireland drift away. Because keep in mind, as my colleague has pointed out here, we're not talking about a complete departure of British influence from Ireland, because of the connection between the shared interests between Dublin and London in seeing Northern Ireland remain relatively calm, that there now is a very close connection in spite of the differences over Brexit, but there still remains a very fundamental shared interest between Dublin and London in maintaining Northern Ireland calmness, that in the event of the union with Britain and Northern Ireland going, that I would believe that Britain sees Dublin as their ally on the island of Ireland now, rather than Belfast in the past, which it was a boots-on-the-ground position a century ago. It's a question of interest. And I think that now London would look at Ireland and they have, if you like, they have two options. Do you have a relationship similar to the United States and Canada, or do you have a relationship similar to the United States and Cuba? And I think common sense in London will say that the United States and Canada relationship, Dublin and London, is much more desirable than the type of coercive relationship that might have existed in the past. So for that reason, I think Britain has many reasons to maintain the relationship with Dublin, and Dublin has a vested interest in maintaining a very close relationship, alliance with the overall interests and ethos in Britain, whether there's a Brexit or not.
Thank you very much, that's great.
Thank you. Don't be shy. They're really nice people.
Maybe just a clarification, because to my mind, what's most likely at the moment is a Brexit with no deal at all. And in this case, what we will see is a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, and actual very strict customs controls, passport controls, the limited movement of goods, of people, all the freedoms that we have within the European Union today. That'll all be put a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. I'm not sure we got to that point in saying if there is no deal at all, that's what we're going to end up with anyway.
Well, for a start, I'm not sure that there will be no deal. But just accepting that there may be no deal and that Britain falls out of the European Union without any understanding between Britain and the European Union. Within the last 2 days, the British government has published its assessment of what will happen post the 29th of March, that if there is a no deal, they have explicitly said that they are not going to create a customs barrier between the Republic of Ireland and the north of Ireland and Northern Ireland. That's official statement from Britain. Now that may cause some difficulties with the World Trade Organization, but these issues are not clear at all because there are exceptions. One exception would be for security, national security. So the British could argue that in the interests of national security that they can have an exception to the World Trade Organization rules, and they would argue on the basis of Northern Ireland's record of its history of violence in the past that this will allow for it. Secondly, that the Irish government has said that they have no interest in putting and have no intention of putting up customs positions on the Irish border. Now, I think we take it in the whole. We're talking about pragmatic, realpolitik. The European Union has two interests in Ireland, and one is to ensure that Ireland doesn't become an entrepot for global produce to enter the European Union. Now, the European Union has little interest, I would argue, in preventing small-scale individual smuggling from north to south, that if I travel a few miles north and buy a television set and smuggle it home for to use at home, that doesn't distort the GDP of the European Union. It's only when there would be mass exports from one to the other, and I believe that at that stage that the Irish government could equally effectively intercept that type of vast exports through random checkpoints in the Midlands of Ireland or at the ports of Ireland, because Ireland, after all, and I'm only stating the obvious, Ireland is an island. All produce from Ireland, north or south, has to either travel through a seaport or an airport. And if this were to happen, the Irish authorities could quite conveniently intercept goods of that quantity at the seaports or at the airports. They don't have to do it along the border to cause that sort of contention. So I think there's a lot of flexibility, there's a lot of negotiations, and keep in mind that the European Union has no interest in seeing a conflict in Ireland. The British have no interest in seeing a conflict in Ireland. The World Trade Organization has no interest in seeing a conflict in Ireland. When in the round, it's quite easy to determine how much Ireland's GDP is now, and if all of a sudden the Irish start exporting thousands of motor cars to the European Union, to the continental Europe, it's going to be quite obvious what's happening. We don't have any motor factories in Ireland. So the practicalities of it, I think, will ensure that this idea that we're going to have high borders. On the other hand, one of the concerns of the British is the free movement of people. It's impossible to stop the free movement of people from south to north unless you build a huge wall, unless we were to... Now, to be a little bit facetious, Arlene Foster has invited Donald Trump to a golf tournament in Northern Ireland over the summer. So unless Donald Trump brings his wall to the Ireland, and I hope he doesn't, and I hope it doesn't even get an invitation, the old scoundrel. But look, to walk from where I live in County Monaghan to across the border into County Armagh, it's about half a mile over the fields, a comfortable dander. It'll be much more comfortable than trying to climb one of these mountains around Grenoble here. So look, that isn't a feasibility. So I think there's an over-concentration on this huge border position. I don't think it's in the outworking that we're going to be confronted with that stark position that you rightly have identified, that has been highlighted. But I think it's wide of the mark in the practical outworking of the situation, whatever happens.
Would you like to add something?
Other questions? But we'd like to.
Otherwise, I have a question, but it's a very open-ended question. So we're in 2019. What do you think are the main challenges for the EU?
Well, Paul, do you want to take that first?
Yeah. What do you think? Well, it's intriguing, isn't it? I mean, I think the big thing, the big problem that people in the European Union have is increasing the rise of social inequality, economic exclusion, the denigration of minority communities, minority cultures, and I think the European Union. I mean, we could argue about the fact that it was never a social union; it was always driven by a form of German, Austrian ordoliberalism, and about the paternalistic state, and that was that's great. And I think along the way, because of the role of labour unions, mostly in Germany and France, and then latterly in Italy and Belgium, and then Scandinavia, I think that there was a domestication of capital and a drive towards making social Europe something which was. The majority of people we live in a capitalist society, but the majority of people could be part of that through the rise in social wage across a whole range of countries and so on. This is really vital, and I think that the attack on that, the social wage, the attack on worker rights, the attack on individual communities, and the attack on a whole range of historically fought for really, really precious freedoms. I think it's one of the things, but something called the European Union can't solve that. I think it's a focus of our attention, but I think people and communities, and including the labour movement and social movements, have to be at the forefront of trying to civilise Europe again. I think that would be the thing. You could say again, we can argue about whether it was, but let's say make it civilised again, because this is part of the early rhetoric. And I think that's the challenge within the European Union. And it was certainly in the case in the 1970s when the British labour movement argued for United Socialist States of Europe, that it could identify very important post-war gains across a range of countries. And of course, more recently, especially after what happened in Greece and the Republic of Ireland, it's been very difficult to argue that. But there's absolutely no reason why that couldn't be done if you're in the European Union, because if you can't, either you say you give up and you don't fight to make for better worlds, or we've got to change our analysis of things. So. You did ask, and I think Ireland will probably win the Six Nation Championship. And Ireland, of course, we're talking about Ireland North and South, but oh dear. And that's rugby, we're not talking about proper sports.
Yeah, I think the European Union, as constructed at the moment, is certainly facing a huge question mark over its future. When the economic crisis that started with the Lehman Brothers crash in 2008 impacted in Ireland in 2010, we found that we had borrowed a lot of money. Our banks had borrowed a lot of money from the big banks in Europe, and we faced a financial crisis, where under the normal rules of capitalism, those that take a risk, those that loan money to earn interest, pay the price in terms of a bad loan. The then European Commissioner Jean-Claude Trichet told Ireland that we were not allowed to burn the bondholders, that we had to socialise the debt to the extent of about approximately 70 billion euro, which in terms of the Irish economy, bear in mind that we have about 4 million people living in Ireland, that to socialise the debt of the bankers, the financiers, meant that in practice we had introduced measures that prevented us building social housing. We now have a housing problem, a homelessness crisis. It prevented us expanding on our health service. Now we have a two-tier health service where the wealthy can access health care. Those of us that haven't the same money have to go on a lengthy waiting list to receive health care, where privatisation has crept up. This has been somewhat disguised. The actual analysis has been disguised because we're talking now about Brexit and we're talking about the European Union and how much advantage we're going to possibly get if a handful of, believe it or not, if a handful of bankers come from London who take up residence in Ireland, as if we didn't have enough bankers in the past to destroy the economy. We are experiencing that problem in Ireland. We have a two-tier economy, we have a two-tier social strata. It's not uncommon across Europe, and this, I would argue, is the underlying cause for this, the rise of the far right. We're seeing the far right rise here in France, we're seeing it in Germany. Undoubtedly, we're seeing on the eastern fringes of the European Union, Hungary, Poland, Austria, Italy. We're seeing those countries where there are distinctively worrying and disturbing far right elements. We have to be very careful about using the term fascist because it requires a very tight definition. But we're talking about right-wing, ultra-conservative governments in power across parts of Eastern Europe, even down into Italy. We're seeing a contest here in France for the presidential election between Emmanuel Macron, a free marketeer on one hand, and as deemed a better option than the Le Pen. So those are the problems. Now, unless the European Union can address those issues, we have retreated from social Europe to have a neoliberal Europe. The centre cannot indefinitely hold unless there is meaningful change and this inequality is not addressed. So we could be confronted with the issue, can we reform the European Union? Then we're into the question of wide majorities, vetoes. Whenever Poland decided to change the legal system, the president of Hungary said, well, I'll veto any criticism of Poland. Similarly, this is the underlying problem with changing the European Union. Hence, those of us on the left in Ireland and Britain advocated what we called a Lexit position. We said, let's get out. We've got to break up this neoliberal alliance that is preventing us taking the measures that would collectivise the economy, socialise the economy, and return to the communalisation of wealth.
Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to give the speakers a big round of applause.